Component 3, Teaching, Practice, and Learning Environment. Overview. This document provides information about the early adolescence, and young adulthood / mathematics, EYA / mathematics, Component 3 Portfolio Entry. Instructions on how to develop and submit your evidence and the scoring rubric used to assess your work. Component 3 Teaching, Practice, and Learning Environment. This portfolio entry captures details about your instructional planning, direct evidence of your practice from 2 video recordings and instructional materials, and your analysis of reflection on your teaching is displayed in 2 video recordings. You will be evaluated on the demonstrated evidence of your practice and analysis as it relates to instruction. Student engagement and learning environment. This portfolio entry and the rubric used to assess your submission are aligned with the 5 core propositions and the certificate area standards. EA/AYA/Mathematics Components 3 Portfolio Entry. In the EA/EYA Mathematics Component 3, you provide a brief overview of the content of your overall submission. You submit 2 10 to 15 minute videos of your teaching practice, showcasing different instructional units, content, and strategies in each. You submit information about the instructional context for each video. You describe your instructional planning for the lesson featured in each video and submit appropriate supporting materials. You submit a commentary for each video that includes analysis and reflection on your during and after the lesson shown in the video, and that focuses on your impact on student learning. Page 2. Inside this document. This document includes the following 2 sections: portfolio instructions for EA-AYA/Mathematics Component 3, which describes how to develop and submit your evidence, and scoring rubric for EA-AYA/Mathematics Component 3, which provides the scoring rubric used to assess your work. Portfolio instructions. The EA-AYA/Mathematics Component 3 portfolio instructions provide the following: directions for developing and submitting your evidence of accomplished teaching. Forms required for this entry. As you prepare your portfolio, keep in mind some forms contain directions that are not repeated elsewhere. Follow these directions carefully. An electronic submission at a glance chart listing the materials you collect and or prepare, as well as the release forms to keep for your records. Submitting complete and appropriate materials is essential for proper scoring of your portfolio entry. For general information about developing and submitting your materials, refer to the general portfolio instructions available at www.nbpts.org/certification/candidate-center/. For instructions on using the electronic portfolio management system to submit your materials, review the tips, tools, and tutorials and the guide to electronic submission at the previous website that I just said. The EA-AYA/Mathematics Component 3 scoring rubric is provided to assist you in understanding how your portfolio materials will be assessed. Page 3. Portfolio instructions for EA-AY/Mathematics Component 3. This section contains the directions for developing and submitting the Component 3 EA-AYA/Mathematics portfolio entry and assembling it for submission. Entry directions include suggestions for planning your portfolio entry and choosing evidence of your teaching practice, an explanation of how to format, assemble, and submit your portfolio entry, questions that must be answered as part of your submission. Before beginning to work on this portfolio entry, read the following directions for developing each element. This entry captures your ability to integrate the domains of mathematics and your developmental studies abilities to engage with you and with each other in meaningful mathematics discourse. Each of the 2 videos you submit should show you and your student engaged in a topic or concept or addressing a problem that is directly related to your instructional goals. Identify 2 lessons from different instructional units for which you will provide information about your instructional planning and choice of materials, and will capture video that shows evidence of your teaching practice, the learning environment, and student engagement. Together, the 2 lessons must demonstrate a breadth of content in mathematics, different instructional formats, example, large group, small group, one-on-one, or other configuration that is appropriate for your situation, and different teaching strategies. In this entry, you provide an overview of your entire entry with your rationales for including the 2 videos to illustrate your instruction of mathematics, describe your learning goals, and demonstrate instructional planning appropriate to the students' content and context for 2 lessons from different instructional units. Show at least 2 different instructional formats and demonstrate at least 2 different teaching strategies that you use to help students meet their learning goals. Provide your analysis of your students' growth and development as individuals who can reason and think mathematically, formulate and solve problems, justify and communicate conclusions, and question and extend those conclusions. What do I need to submit? For this entry, you must submit the forms and evidence described in this section. Refer to the specific sections for each part of the portfolio and the Component 3 electronic submission at a glance. Chart. Later in this document for detailed instructions about organizing and formatting your materials and page and time limits. Introduction to the entry. Submit a completed introduction to the entry form in which you provide a brief overview of your entire entry, no more than 1 page. Describe the focus of video 1 and the focus of video 2 and your rationale for including this pair of videos in your portfolio submission. Page 4. Instructional context. For each video, submit a completed instructional context sheet, no more than 1 page for each video, 2 pages total, in which you provide information about your teaching context and the students in the class featured in each video. Social and physical context, example, available resources such as technology, scheduling of classes, room allocation, own or shared space. State and or mandates. Student demographics of the classes featured in the videos, example, ethnic, cultural, and linguistic diversity, the range of abilities, and the cognitive/social, behavior, attentional, sensory, and or physical challenges of your students. For clarity, spell out the first occurrence of acronyms. Combine both instructional context sheets in a single file for submission. Videos. Create 2 video recordings, 10 to 15 minutes each, from 2 different instructional units. The 2 video recordings submitted for Component 3 and the evidence submitted for Component 2 and Component 4 must be from different lessons. Instructional planning and materials. For each video, submit a file containing the following materials, no more than 6 pages total per file. A completed instructional planning form, no more than 1 page, in which you provide the following: the unit of instruction, the instructional goals for the unit, goals for the lesson featured in the video, the instructional format chosen for the lesson, a description of the materials or resources used. An accompanying description no more than 2 pages of your instructional planning and instructional strategies and rationales for your choice of goals, strategies, and materials. 1 or more instructional materials, no more than 3 pages total. Reading commentary. For each video, write a commentary no more than 4 pages each on the instruction captured in the video, your decision making, and your reflection on the lesson after its completion. Be sure your video and written commentary are clearly connected and support one another. Submission requirements. Variety of evidence. The 2 video recordings for Component 3 must be from different instructional units. The evidence submitted for Component 2 and Component 4 and one of the 2 video recordings submitted for Component 3 may be from the same unit of instruction but must be from different lessons and have unique lesson goals and objective, even if all evidence is drawn from a single instructional setting or class. Time frame for activities and evidence collection. The period for evidence collection begins 12 months prior to the date of the opening of the ePortfolio submission window, as described in the Guide to National Board Certification. If you submit your portfolio with one or more sections that feature a class and or evidence that date from more than 12 months before the opening of the ePortfolio submission window, your component will not be scoreable and you receive a code of NS on your score report instead of a numerical score. Now onto page 5. That was a continuation of page 4. Onto page 5. Required elements. As you prepare your portfolio, pay careful attention to the forms, information, and other evidence you are required to submit. It is your responsibility to make sure that your portfolio component materials are complete when they are submitted. You will not be notified of any missing materials. You will not receive a score for this component if you do not submit any parts of the component or is lacking critical materials. Even if your portfolio is missing a minor piece, bear in mind that assessors will have less information on which to base their evaluation of your work. The Component 3 electronic submission at a glance chart later in this document summarizes all the pieces that you need to include and can help you take the completeness of your submission. Formatting and page/time limitations. You must also pay careful attention to the formatting guidelines and stated page and time limits for the various materials you submit. Assessors will only read up to the allowable page limit. Likewise, they will only view each video up to the stated time limit. Information on pages exceeding the maximum or on a video recording beyond the time limit will not be considered in the scoring of your submission. Language and other English. Videos or other evidence submitted may include brief expressions or phrases in a language other than English. The inclusion of such expressions or phrases must be limited because assessors do not have fluency in languages other than English. If expressions or phrases in a language other than English that are important for an assessor to understand are included, you must include brief explanations of these expressions or phrases in a written commentary that accompanies your portfolio submission. If you are submitting video evidence or other types of evidence, example, student work sample, in a language other than English, you must include a written English translation in the file with this sample. For a translation of a video, include the translation at the end of the written commentary. Include any necessary student identifiers, but do not include students' last names. Note that the pages of your translation do not count toward your page totals. If you do not include a translation or explanation, language other than English will not be considered in the scoring of your submission, except brief non-English terms or phrases commonly used by English speakers. Your submission will be scored based on the portions in English and the translation/explanations you provide. It will be scored as 0 if the scoreable portions do not merit a score of 1 or higher. Your written commentary must be written entirely in English in order to be considered for scoring. Originality requirements. It may be helpful to have a colleague review your work before you submit it. However, all the work you submit as a part of your response to the component must be yours and yours alone. The written analysis and other evidence you submit must feature teaching that you did and work that you oversaw. For more detailed information, see the Ethics and Collaboration section in the General Portfolio Instructions and the National Board's Ethics Policy. If you submit materials and/or evidence which are whole or in part substantially identical to those of another candidate, both of you could be disqualified from the certification process. Page 6. Planning and selecting instructional materials. Writing about planning. Complete the instructional planning form, no more than one single space page for each video, using 11-point Arial font. Write a description no more than 2 double-space pages for each video, using 11-point Arial font, of your instructional planning and decision-making for promoting students' learning in the context of the lesson featured in the video. In your description, be sure to address the following questions. In the instructional context sheet, you identified your students' characteristics. How did you use detailed knowledge of your students' backgrounds, needs, abilities, and interests, and your knowledge of mathematics in your planning and choice of strategies? What are the instructional challenges represented by your students? How did the social and physical context you describe influence your planning? What are your long-term instructional goals for this class, and why are these goals appropriate for these students? How do the instructional goals for this particular lesson fit into your long-term goals? What is your rationale for choosing the instructional format that you use to meet the goals of this lesson? What are your lessons for selecting the materials or resources used? Selecting instructional materials. Include instructional materials that will help an assessor understand the lesson in the video recording. You or your student may have used these materials before, during, or after the activity featured on the video recording. How to format and submit your instructional materials. Complete a new instructional planning form, no more than 1 page each, for each video. Refer to the Component 3 Forms section of this document. Use single-spaced 11-font Arial font. Include the following after each form in your file for submission. Associated description of your instructional planning and strategies, no more than 2 pages. Use double-spaced 11-point Arial font with 1-inch margins on all sides of an 8.5 by 11-inch page. 1 or more instructional materials, no more than 3 pages total. Place your candidate ID on the instructional planning form. Be sure that your instructional materials are legible and refer to people and places in ways that preserve anonymity. Follow the guidelines for referring to people, institutions, and places section in the General Portfolio Instructions. Format your instructional materials to fit onto an 8.5 by 11-inch page. Do not reduce full-size pages or instructional materials to fit more than 1 instructional material onto a single 8.5 by 11-inch page. Do not use a smaller font or narrower margins in an attempt to fit in more information. If content has been manipulated to fit, assessors will not read anything beyond the equivalent to the specified maximum length. If instructional materials contain web pages, each 8.5 by 11-inch web page printout or PDF counts as 1 page towards your page total. If instructional materials were created using presentation software, example, Google Slides, Microsoft PowerPoint, etc., you may format up to 6 slides on one 8.5-inch by 11-inch page, which counts as 1 page towards your page total. Be sure any text on the slides is large enough to be fully legible without magnification of the 8.5 by 11 inch page. Original font text no smaller than 36 points, and that there is adequate spacing between text to allow assessors to easily read the slides. If submitting smaller items including photos and images but not text, you may format up to 6 smaller items on one 8.5 by 11 inch page, which counts as one page towards your page total. In determining the number of smaller items to include on a single page, keep in mind that each of the items must be large and clear enough for assessors to be able to view relevant details. If instructional materials that are important for assessors to see are impractical to submit or do not show up clearly in the video recordings, submit a digitized drawing, image, or photograph of adequate size to be clearly visible without magnification, or a description/transcription of the material. If you submit a drawing, image, or photograph, be sure it is large enough to be legible on an 8.5 by 11 inch page. If you submit a description/transcription, it must be typed in double-spaced 11-point Arial font with 1-inch margins on all sides. The description/transcription will count as part of your page total. Submitted materials with illegible text or images too small to be clearly viewed will not be scored. Assessors will only read up to the allowable page limit. Pages exceeding the maximum will not be scored. Refer to the Component 3 electronic submission at a glance chart in this document for page totals for each piece of evidence and how to assemble instructional materials for submission. Recording your videos. You may wish to record a number of different class periods so that you have several recordings from which to choose. Be sure to choose video recordings that give you an opportunity to discuss your practice. It is important to show how you create a positive learning environment, engage students, and facilitate student learning. Page 8. The lessons featured in the videos should be independent of one another and be able to stand alone as evidence of your teaching practice. The videos can be made using the same class of students or different classes of students. The videos should show much of the class as possible, but it's acceptable to focus on a particular student while he or she is talking. Use a camera angle that includes many faces of the students in the class as possible. You and your students must be seen and heard in both videos. It is important for assessors to be able to see and hear you and your students together. Your students interacting with each other, your students' reactions to do what you are doing, and their engagement in learning. Your portfolio component will not be scored if you fail to meet these requirements. If you do not receive permission to include a student or adult in the video, you must ensure that he/she is out of the camera's range and not heard. Scan the environment in which you plan to record your videos to avoid recording visual cues that reveal individuals' names, your school's facility name, or location. The contents of the two videos combined must represent different instructional formats and different teaching strategies. You are not required to feature more than one instructional format or teaching strategy in a single video, although you may. You must be sure, however, that the combined contents of your two videos represent a breadth of the content area and show at least two different instructional formats and two different teaching strategies. For example, if you feature a large group format in one video, the second must present a different format, such as small group, one-on-one, or other appropriate configurations. Both videos must also showcase integration of domains in mathematics as appropriate to each lesson. Selecting a class for each video. Choose the class to feature in each of your video recordings. Both videos may feature the same class of students, or you may feature a different class in each video. The featured class in each video must be a roster class during a regular school day and year, not an after-school or summer school class. Note that at least 51% of the students in the class that you use for school for each video must be within the stated age range for a certificate area during the use for each video must be within the state age range for a certificate area during the period in which you collect evidence for your portfolio. If you do not adhere to the class composition requirements, your component will not be scored when you receive a code of NS in your score report instead of a numerical score. Since your response will be considered on the basis of how you support students engaged in purposeful mathematics learning, the class you choose should provide the best opportunity to feature your practice. The focus is your practice and your ability to facilitate student learning, not on the level of student achievement. If you are in an administrative position or in an assignment or teacher working where you do not have a class of your own that matches the parameters of the certificate area in which you are seeking certification, you may borrow or guest teach another teacher's class or students in order to complete the portfolio component. Whether working with your own or another teacher's students, you will be accepted to submit authentic materials that represent your individual work. You must meet the time frames specified in these instructions. Your submission will be assessed in terms of the component task and the criteria defined by the rubric. Your work will be assessed with the same standards as the work of candidates who represent work generated by their own students. Selecting a lesson for each video. Select a lesson for each video recording that provides opportunities for your students to engage in meaningful mathematics discourse. The lesson should show you how you develop students' abilities to make connections among mathematical ideas and to apply these ideas to problem solving in mathematics and other disciplines and in the world outside of school. The objective need to be advanced, but the lesson on which you are focusing should be one that is important for the students at their level of learning and one in which they are likely to be engaged in constructive and meaningful discourse. As you determine which lesson to feature in each video, consider how you will provide evidence of the following aspects of your teaching practice. These observable actions are derived from the mathematics standards to which you should refer to for full guidance. Learning environment. Establish a safe, fair, quiet, equitable, and challenging environment that promotes active student engagement in activities and substance of mathematical instruction. Create a student-centered learning environment based on trust and mutual respect. Equip students with skills Equip students with skills that support collaboration, such as the ability to ask thoughtful questions, listen to one another, and respond respectfully to others' ideas and mathematical arguments. Foster the active engagement of students with the teacher and each other in sharing ideas, conversing purposely, and listening attentively as they explore significant mathematic topics. Design and implement opportunities for students to engage in self-directed learning and to engage in meaningful expression. Integrate prior student knowledge with mathematical activities that are connected to learning goals and sequence and structure instruction so that students can achieve the goals. Support all students in developing the dispositions and proficiencies necessary to use mathematical reasoning to solve problems and to communicate and extend conclusions. Page 10. Facilitate the inquiry process for students by delineate possible pathways for investigation and modeling the inquiry process. Use appropriate, rich, and thought-provoking instructional resources to engage students in learning important mathematics concepts. Monitor and evaluate student learning. Make instructional adjustments as part of an ongoing process of assessment, and provide regular constructive feedback to students. Video editing and audio enhancement rules. Submitting each video recording in a continuous and unedited format provides the most authentic representation of your teaching practice. However, each video recording may include up to 2 edits for the reasons listed below. The only allowable edits to the videos are for the following reasons: moving a whole class into a different physical instructional setting such as a lab, a gymnasium, or outdoors, responding to safety drills, changing the battery in the video camera. No other edits to the video recordings are allowed. Not allowable edits include, but are not limited to, creating an introduction, adding captions, or using features such as fade in/fade out that detract from an authentic presentation of your instructional setting. You may not make edits to your videos to remove student or announcement disruptions or interruptions. Individual/choir work time, transitioning from whole group to small group instruction or vice versa. Moving among small groups in different locations. Assessment time, etc. If a release form was not obtained from one or more students and or adults, ensure that the individuals are not in camera view when recording your evidence and your videos. Blurring their faces in the video is not an allowable edit. If either of your video recordings include one or more allowable edits for the reasons listed above, you must note the reasoning for each edit on the instructional planning form. If you submit a video with more than 2 edits, only the proportion prior to the 3rd edit will be viewed and scored. If you submit a video that has an edit other than 2 of the allowable edits due to the reasoning obviously left, only the portion prior to the non-allowed edit will be viewed and scored. Amplifying the sound to enhance the audio on the video is acceptable as long as the amplification of the sound does not conflict with the post-production editing rules described above. How to format and submit your videos. Submit 2 video recordings of 10 to 15 minutes each. If you submit longer videos recording, Asters will only view the first 15 minutes. If you edit your videos as allowed for only the reasons listed above, make sure each video includes no more than 2 edits. Assessors will view and score only the portion of the recording prior to the 3rd edit. If expressions or phrases in a language other than English that are important for an assessor to understand are included in your video, provide brief explanations of these expressions or phrases in the reading commentary. Page 11. If your video is in a language other than English, you must provide a written English translation that includes your candidate ID and any necessary student identifiers, but not students' names. Include the translation at the end of the file with your written commentary. Your translation does not count toward your page totals. Convert your video into a file format that meets Electronic Portfolio Management System requirements, MP4. Compress the size of your video file if necessary. The recommended file size is 200 megabytes to 300 megabytes. Refer to the video conversion and comprehension guide at www.nbpts.org/certification/candidate-centers/ to download free software with instructions. Play back the final rule before uploading to ensure it can be viewed by assessors, and to check the audio quality. You and your students must be seen and heard in both videos. Refer to the Component 3 Electronic Submission at a Glance chart in this document for complete video submission requirements. Composing written commentary. In this entry, you submit a written commentary on the instructional capture in the video and your decision making, as well as your reflection on the lesson after its completion. When citing evidence, it is helpful to assessors if you identify specific locations in the one recording by describing specific dialogue, events, and or students. The girl in the green sweater in the second row. In addition to a description, you may also provide a timestamp reference to help assessors if necessary. How to organize and present your reading commentary. Create a word processing document to compose your reading commentary. Address the italicized questions in the following section entitled What to Include in Your Reading Commentary. Refer to the Writing About Teaching section in the General Portfolio instructions for advice on developing your reading commentary and to see examples. In writing your reading commentary, refer to people and places in ways that preserve anonymity. Follow the guidelines for referring to people, instructions, and places section in the General Portfolio instructions. Place your candidate ID number in the upper right corner of the first page of your reading commentary document. Use the following language and format specifications when writing your reading commentary. Writing English, use double-spaced 11-point Arial font. Format 1-inch margins on all sides of the document using an 8.5 by 11-inch page size. Refer to the Component 3 Electronic Submission at a Glance chart in this document for complete submission requirements. Your reading commentary will be scored based on its content. However, you should proofread your writing for spelling, mechanics, and usage. Submit a document for your reading commentary of no more than 4 double-spaced pages for each video. If you submit a longer document, only the first 4 pages will be scored. Page 12. What to include in your reading commentary. In your reading commentary, be sure to address the following questions. How did the pedagogical and instructional decisions you made during the lesson align with your planning? What specific approaches, strategies, and techniques or activities did you use to promote active student engagement in the lesson? Cite specific examples on the video recording. How did you establish a safe, fair, equitable, and challenging learning environment for all students? How did you monitor and assess student progress during the lesson, and how did this influence your decision-making during instruction? How was the student feedback provided, and what was your rationale for providing it in this manner? To what extent did you achieve the lesson's goals or goals? Provide evidence from the video recordings to support your answer. What were your next steps with these students as a result? How was your approach to teaching this content to the students in this video influenced by past experience? What would you do differently? If anything, if you were to teach this particular lesson again to a similar group of students next year, if you would not change anything, explain why. That was page 12. Thank you.